Hey, I'm Richard Schwartz, President Emeritus of Jewish Veg and author of this book, Vegan Revolution, Saving Our World, Revitalizing Judaism. And this is a continuation of my podcast where I interview key vegetarians, vegans, animal rights activists, environmentalists. And we have a really special guest tonight, Mark Perlmutter, who started an amazing group, a wonderful group called Vegan Investment Club. So welcome to the podcast, Mark.
Thank you, Richard. It's a pleasure to join you.
Yeah, it's great to join you. So I always like to start out by getting a little bit of history. It's always, everybody has an interesting story, how they got to the vegan activism. So let us know what got you involved, how did you become a vegan activist, and get involved in creating such a wonderful initiative.
Sure, thanks. That's a great question to start with. So really briefly, because it's a long story, I've been at this a long time, like you. I wanted to be part of a world that worked for everyone. It was inclusive. And I saw some things as a young man, an 18-year-old kid, that I didn't agree with, particularly the US involvement in the Vietnam War. And I was reading Gandhi at the time, and he taught, if you want to stop men killing men, then you stop men killing animals first. And I thought, okay, that makes sense. Step one, step two. So I decided, as an experiment and a peaceful protest against the Vietnam War, I decided to stop eating animals. That was January 1st, 1972. And I thought I'd try for 6 months. And I'm lucky, it lasted. I didn't know any vegan. We didn't even use the word vegan at the time. We just called it pure vegetarian. And, there wasn't Whole Foods, it wasn't any vegan restaurants, it wasn't Beyond Meat, it wasn't Oatly milk. It was just, you would just remove animal products, and what you were left with was cooked vegetables. That was, and salads. And I was lucky, it worked. And over the years, I learned a lot more about the health aspects for my own personal health and public health. I learned a lot about, of course, the animal suffering and the causes of how that trickles into the food system. And so it's totally terrible for people to be eating animals that were raised in this way. And I also learned about the environmental consequences of big ag. So for all of those components, it reinforced my choice to eat first vegetarian and then vegan. And so ever since then, that's what I've been doing. And even though I worked in Wall Street, worked in the finance community, I kept my diet quiet because that might be a deal blocker. People thought vegans were weird for most of the 70s, 80s, 90s. Today it's cool, it's in, it's Hollywood, but back then it wasn't. That's how I got started, Richard.
Okay, wonderful story. And what gave you the idea of a vegan investment club? And tell us a little bit about it. How does it work? What are the objectives?
Sure, that's great. So the club came in a natural progression of me figuring out ways to integrate my personal values with my professional career. How would I bring money to vegan ventures to accelerate the vegan economy? And back in the 90s, when I first learned about the internet, I thought, oh, this is fantastic. I mean, I can push one button and send a message to 2,000 or 20,000 or 100,000 people about an investment. This is a lot better than dialing for dollars, which is what we used to do. We used to call up people. And so that was my first effort at trying to use the internet to raise money for early stage companies. We used the current laws at the time. They were very cumbersome. They weren't efficient the way we have crowdfunding laws today. So that was it was 1995, 96. I first built a website called Direct IPO. We were doing small IPOs online. Fast forward 2012, Obama signs the crowdfunding laws, part of the Jobs Act, Title III of the Jobs Act. And in 2013, I put on a big online summit for 12,000 people with 75 speakers, all about how crowdfunding works, how it's used, what the history has been in Europe, where it's been going for longer than the US, how to do it efficiently, and the idea of the portal, which was part of the law, It was created by the law. A portal is like a broker-dealer, but specifically for crowdfunding. And we fast forward from 2013, when I did this summit, to 2016, when the laws were finally codified by the SEC, and I presented evidence and did testimonies for how I thought the law should be enacted. I'll tell you, there were a lot of people involved back then, those years, and we finally got this pretty good law in 2016. Since then, we've been going. 2021, we got an upgrade to the law. We got additional amounts. So you used to be able to raise only $1 million. Now you can raise $5 million as a company. You used to be able to only have investors listed in your stock cap table. Now you can group them into a unit, like a special purpose vehicle, SPV, or a trust or a partnership, and they can go on as one entry. That really helps facilitate crowdfunding, participating in private deals where venture capitals are there. They're investing first. So all of these innovations have happened over the last 6 years, since 2016. And now we have a very sophisticated, both the portals. There's over 70 portals licensed in the US to do crowdfunding. About 5 of them do most of the business. Also, we have millions of people that have participated in equity crowdfunding, that are familiar with it, that are fans of it. And usually when you do one, it gets so easy. It's just like e-commerce, a few clicks and you made an investment. So because of that ease and that attractive experience, the people that do it once usually do it again and again and again. I've personally invested in over 50 different small crowdfund companies, mostly in the vegan space, but I've also invested in climate technology and other technologies which I think will improve quality of life. So where we are right now with the club is we started the club in the US as a test. We got 20,000 members. They signed up for free, no obligation. They just give us their first name and their email. And then we start sending them notification of companies who pay us to notify them. And if I don't invest in the company myself, I don't announce them to the club. We don't charge members. As I said, there's no commission, there's no fee. We get paid by the company. And so that's a nice model. We're an advertising model. We're under an exclusion for newsletters. So we're not a broker dealer, we're not a portal, we're not regulated, and it's a very low overhead model of operation, basically a large email list. We have built a landing page for people to learn and where they can sign up. And then after that, we then send them notices every month. And they can reach out to us with questions, which some members do. And about 100 members have sent me emails and I respond to those. But mainly it's a very personal sharing of my choices of the companies that I invest in, why I invested. And then if you want to, there's a link. You go link that takes you to the crowdfunding portal, wherever that company is. And then you make up your own mind. And if you want to invest, that's where the investment is made. It's private information between you and the company. I'm not involved in the transaction. I'm not a broker dealer regulated by the SEC any longer. I'm exempt for what I do. It's not regulated. And I'm just accelerating the vegan economy. And we're about to open a club in Israel. That's the next venue. India, Australia, and the UK would be the next expansion phase. The big global vision, Richard, you can get this. You're in Israel, so you can get this, is to have a network of clubs across the world that are linked with members in the millions. And so if a company wants to raise capital, they could come to our club network, and in 4 or 5 countries, they could raise a couple $1 million in 1 week. And it would all be investors who love them, putting in $100, $200, $1,000, $2,000, like that. And the goal is to accelerate the vegan and climate change economy and give 98% of our population who never get to invest in early stage companies, give them a chance to invest in companies they love. So that's really the motivation of the club. It's how to bring the 98% into the early stage investing to change the world. I think we'll end up with a better product and services in our market. I think we'll end up with a better world. I think we'll end up with population being interested and caring about these young startups and being ambassadors. So that's really where we are. so far today. We have 20,000 members in the US. That's working. We're starting a club in Israel, and we're looking at UK, India, Australia for expansion. Yeah.
In Israel. Okay, fabulous, fabulous. Well, Kol HaKavod, as they say in Israel, all the honor, kudos. It's wonderful, and of course, I wish you the most success. And I'm looking forward to working with you and hoping to help as much as I can. Now,
Thank you. We're building our website for the Israel, and you gave us a wonderful quote that'll be on that website as an endorsement quote. When do you think this you'll send out this message that I'm recording with you today?
Okay, well, I have a list. I don't know if maybe 70 or 80 what I call advisors, key environmentalists, vegetarian, vegans, animal rights people, mostly the US and Israel, some from the UK. And I send it to them and encourage them to send it further. And of course,
the reason I'm asking is we're building a website. It's not quite ready. So I can give it to you now, and you can decide to send it out or not send it out when it's, because you'll take a look at it. It's not quite ready. Okay.
And in addition, definitely this interview will be on YouTube, and working with Yossi Wolfson, I know you've met here in Israel, and he's a coordinator of Jewish vegetarians.
Yeah.
So we're going to try to get it spread as much as possible and do everything we can, because it's so essential. And maybe you can expand on this. Why is this especially important today, with the issues of today, for people to invest, and why is it super important that there be a major shift toward vegan diets, would you say?
Oh, well, there's so many reasons, Richard. I'll just say climate change is so urgent, and there's a tipping point, and I don't even know where that tipping point is. Some of the experts say we've crossed that tipping point, where the downward spiral of an overheated world with more and more fires and droughts and floods and high and low cold swings, hot swings. In any case, it's very urgent that we stop cutting down the rainforest and stop polluting, creating greenhouse gases. And of course, animal agriculture is such a big contributor. The UN said anywhere between 14 to 51% of greenhouse gases come from agriculture for animals. That's the first main reason. Obviously, kindness, compassionate world. We want our souls to be enriched, and we don't want to have this guilt, and we don't want to have this pain that we see when we see the suffering of the animals that we eat. So that's a very important part. Tikkun olam, heal the world. It's a commandment. It's also the right thing to do. We want to be part of the solution for our future generations. And so we want a world that works for not only us, but everyone. And the unfortunate truth of climate change is the poorest parts of the world are being impacted the most by the changes in climate.
And
so that's a factor. Yeah. And then the public health. I mean, the US, which I'm most familiar with, we have 70% pre-diabetic or diabetic. We have 60 to 70% clinically obese. The end of life, last 20 years of life, we spend 90% of our healthcare costs are spent in the last years of our life, and the quality of life is downhill. You're an example of great high quality of life in your elder years, a young man of 87, 88, whatever you are. 89, excuse me, 89. See, you don't even look it. And but most people don't have the robust zest for life, the hunger for life that you exhibit and you show us. And we need to change that. We need to have active, long lifespan, not just time of years, but quality of years. We want the health span to be long also. And so these are the reasons we must do this. How we do this is by being participants in the change. And this is the reason to bring the 98% into the early stage investing. If we just leave it to the government, or just leave it to the venture capitalist or big business, it won't happen. We've got to get our hearts and minds and a few of our own dollars into the game. And this is what crowdfunding does. It gets us into the game of changing our world by changing the companies and the businesses that are in our world. And that will change the products and services and the quality of life on the planet.
Okay, great answer. And there's so many reasons. I want to take the two to expand on one, because that climate change issue is, if we don't avert a climate catastrophe, then everything else will be like meaningless. So you pointed out that it was the United States Department of Agriculture, or the Food and Agriculture Organization, I think, it said 14%, 18%. And then it was a paper in World Watch magazine by two environmentalists associated with the World Bank, 51%. But more recently, I don't know if you know of Salish Rao. He did a paper, I forget the journal anyway. The title was that animal agriculture is the leading cause of climate change. And he came up with a number 87%. And he came up with that because of what he called the possibility, the potential factor. That is, what he pointed out is 43% or so of the world's ice-free land is now used for grazing and growing feed crops for the animals. And where there used to be 6 trillion trees in the world, now 3 trillion. And because of the decreasing of trees, by the way, that's expanding, as you point out, the tropical rainforest, it's incredible. It's just going in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
More and more animals, and that means more and more trees destroyed. Anyway, because so many trees are destroyed, the atmospheric carbon dioxide, which was 285 parts per million before the Industrial Revolution, 420 parts per million now, way above the 350 parts per million that climate experts say is like a threshold value for sustainability. And it's increasing 2 or 3 parts per million per year. So there's no way we can avert a climate catastrophe unless we can reforest and sequester some of that atmosphere, bring it down from that 420 below 350, that threshold value. So this, all those reasons you mentioned, passion for animals, health, but that is super, super important. So again, talk about what you're doing. It's got to be successful. Okay, so
well said, Richard. Thank you. Echo everything you say. Yeah.
But again, we can go through the health. It's unbelievable how we can prevent so many diseases, epidemic disease, in a way that animals are treated. And people don't realize, I just sent a letter to the editor about, as it turns out, Israel is a pioneer in this. And there's a company who now can, in effect, make milk not from cows. And people don't realize the negative effect, how cows are treated, artificially impregnated, what the industry calls rape racks, and the baby's taken away. So it's just so essential. Okay, so wonder, you've hit so many points now. I wonder if you have any final thoughts, summary thoughts.
I'd like to mention, there is one more thought I'd love to add to supplement everything that you and I have talked about, and you said so eloquently. Thank you, Richard, for all your work you've done and all the papers and the books you've written. One of the things that's so exciting for young people is to use the power of crowdfunding to be part of the change so that they are involved in the future that they're going to be inheriting and or passing on to their children. Crowdfunding is a chance for everyone to put a few dollars, we're talking about a small number, usually a minimum of $100, and create a little portfolio of 10 or 20, and in my case, I've got about 50 little investments in companies that are all companies that I think will change the world. And if any one of those becomes a unicorn, I'll make back enough money, I think I've calculated, I'll make back enough money from one to cover all the other 49 that might or might not work. So here's another incentive to be part of this, which is there's a way to distribute a few dollars you have for a long-term portfolio. I call it my vegan retirement portfolio. I'm not retired yet, but someday I will. And the idea is that if I make a small investment equal amount in 30, 40, 50 companies, one of them, two of them will be unicorns, and that'll pay me back. So I'll actually get a profit and I get to be part of the change. So that's the other reason I like to bring Crowdfunding is a chance to be part of the change you wish to see, and maybe make a profit doing it.
Right. Well, that's an amazing point. That's when one of them really takes off, that could really multiply its value many, many times, and that can cover others that don't. But also, do you think now, especially among the young people, that there's more and more awareness? People are realizing, especially how animals are so mistreated, the health effects, the environmental effects. And one other point that we haven't really mentioned yet, that animal-based diets are so super wasteful of water and energy and land and grain. So do you see the momentum in our direction in terms of the young people especially really moving toward veganism and really demonstrating against climate change, for example?
Well, I'm most in touch with millennials. That's who the teams that I work with are usually millennials. And they seem to be very concerned about the environment that they've inherited from baby boomers, Gen Xers. And so their awareness and choices around consumption are usually have either a complete choice based on the environmental impact, the footprint, or at least it's part of their decision. And I'm not as in touch with other groups of young people, but I hope and trust that they're also making decisions with sort of a idea of what's the effect going to be of my choice today. When I buy something and I use a plastic bag to carry it home from the grocery store, well, that's a plastic bag that's going to end up somewhere in the trash, and it takes a while to degrade, and it might end up floating in the ocean in the Pacific for years. So bringing that shopping bag with me to the store is a simple thing to do. And I encourage everyone to do it, and I try to practice it myself. And there are other small modifications that are beautiful and gentle and loving that I see. For instance, a lot of millennials choose a non-leather substitute that looks like leather, but they choose a non-leather substitute for their book bag, their backpack, their clothing, even for their, if they have a jacket, like a leather jacket. So there's lots of ways in which we can make choices where the result and the side effect of it is a positive effect, while we're also getting the benefit we wish to use.